Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the HeroesCCL playoff pre-show. My name's Bahamut, joined by Justin, and we thought, we don't really have a lot of highlights that we can grab and edit them and get them together this quickly for between the days, so let's revisit our power rankings and kind of discuss what our power rankings, Justin and mine, were before the season started, and we'll compare them to how things sit right now at the gauntlet, or at the playoff bracket. But before we jump in to power rankings and all that good stuff in between, we gotta talk about Next Level Gaming. What is Next Level Gaming? They're a Miami-based esports center where you can play Heroes of the Storm among 400 other pre-installed games that are updated daily. Next Level Gaming is a Blizzard cafe which gets you some extra benefits on your account when you play at this esports cafe. They have HP Omens with Intel i7 processors and RTX 3090s, as well as 24-inch monitors at 240 Hz and 32-inch monitors at 144 Hz. Be sure to use nlg.gg/CCL in your web browser to find out all you can about Next Level Gaming. But of course, Justin and I are here and ready to talk about our power rankings, and we'll compare them to, well, where the standings sat as we were getting into the playoffs. So, Justin, let's jump into this, and I'll go ahead and I'll start with mine. I'll jump in here and I'll say I had Chili Mountain in first place at this point. At the start of the playoffs, I was expecting them to be in first place, but in second, I had 30K, Oxygen, Diamond Hands, Wild Heart, Storm Esports, Simplicity, and Granite Gaming. I gotta say, I wasn't too far off when I look at the current standings, but we'll look at that in a second, because Justin, what were your power rankings?
So it's a little embarrassing, but in first place, I had Granite Gaming. We'll notice that they didn't quite fall in that spot by the end of the season, in the real season, but 30K in second, Oxygen in third, Chili Mountain in fourth, then Wild Heart, Storm, Diamond Hands, and finally Simplicity. So at least I got one right.
That's a way to look at it. But I mean, realistically, as the season progressed, I think the one thing that was the biggest conversation was like, will Granite Gaming start to kind of rally and build up momentum, because they were this old guard. Everyone had a lot of expectations from them, and I'm curious, Justin, do you have any thoughts as to maybe how or why they might have fallen so low within our standings at this point?
So I got pranked. I had so much confidence from the interview we had with SMX. I heard the way he spoke with such vigor, and I was inspired. I thought that they were going to come through and sweep everyone, and it was going to be a throwback to the old Dignitas Fnatic days, but that was not the case, as we saw. I think that they just really struggled to have a grasp on the current meta and kind of just the way that the game has changed over the last couple of years. There's been a lot of changes that have been made, and in competitive especially, that affects just every aspect of the game, in the way that you play for objectives, the way that you play for fights, the macro. Pretty much everything's changed quite a bit since then. The meta, the picks themselves. So felt like Granite Gaming just unable to keep up when you have teams like 30K running around that they live and breathe this meta, this current landscape is HOTS.
And so looking at our top two, we have 30K, Oxygen in the top two standings currently, as we are getting, it's things changed up, of course, from the playoffs, but right now, as we are recording this, it's 30K in first, Oxygen in second, Wild Heart, Diamond Hands, Chili Mountain, Storm, Granite, Simplicity. So when I was doing my power rankings, and I don't know about you, I had these kind of wild cards, dark horses, and I put Diamond Hands and Wild Heart kind of in that middle spot because they seemed like good rosters. Storm Esports had a kind of a developmental roster, but Diamond Hands and Wild Heart felt like such wild cards to me, and it's cool to see that they ended up in that third, fourth place spot, because this is a lot of young blood. There is people like Zergling who are they've got some really, really good history and knowledge, and they can kind of bring that to the table with the crew, but Diamond Hands and Wild Heart, they've got a lot of decently young players within the scene, and they did amazing for what their rosters had formed for Season 4 of CCL.
Yeah, I was very surprised with Wild Heart and Diamond Hands. Looks like both of us had Wild Heart in fifth, which was close, but they outperformed our expectations, especially at the start of the season. Wild Heart came out just so strong off the bat, just completely beyond all expectations. And they did show in particular, I think, just the duo of Ivy Tings and Mason Blaze was so strong. And I mean, it still is, and it feels like that's kind of what the team has ridden off the back of, is having these strong hyper carries like Greymane that pretty much know their team is playing, and just playing things like that basically perfectly. When you have two of the best range DPS players on the same team, it's just really scary, and I think that's been shown in the standings now.
It's been amazing to see how these rosters have developed, how they've progressed, and also seeing some of the upsets that we had throughout the season with like the 3-0s happening with Storm Esports and just the absolute craziness leading into the gauntlet bracket. I do, Justin, want to jump into our playoff bracket here with our top 4 teams, and this is going to air after a day of group play, so we can only kind of make guesstimations. We're going to start out with 30K versus Diamond Hands, Oxygen versus Wildheart Esports, and we can kind of think about where things will end up. But Justin, I want to get your thoughts. Who do you think will make it to that grand finals? Because I'm kind of leaning 30K makes it through the top of the bracket, and I feel like Oxygen, it's gonna be hard, but I think Oxygen actually makes it through the bottom of the bracket and beats out like Wildheart. Like I think Diamond Hands actually gets knocked out, and then Wildheart gets beaten by Oxygen. So we'll have like a 30K Oxygen grand finals. What are you thinking about the grand final potential?
So that would be my expectation as well. We'd have a bit of a NA super team versus EU super team sort of thing, which we did have in our power rankings. We had 30K and Oxygen. Those were the 2 that we both had in the top 3. So it's kind of the expectation, and both those teams have just kind of individually ridiculously strong, just stacked rosters. So I would expect 30K versus Oxygen, but Diamond Hands and Wildheart have both had to go through quite a bit. They've both been the dark horses to even make it to the top 4. So it's really impossible to count either one of those teams out. A lot of it is going to come down to the way that the teams prepare for the finals. And Diamond Hands, I think, has really scaled and ramped up as the season has progressed, especially near the end, especially when it counts. So with such a long downtime, it's going to be really hard to call if either Diamond Hands or Wildheart is going to be able to make that upset happen. Diamond Hands in particular, though, they did get the knockout against Wildheart, and then Wildheart did manage to scrape back in because of the other standings shuffling around with the top 4, the way that it played out. So Diamond Hands looks to be the stronger of the 2 between Wildheart and Diamond Hands coming into it. So I think if any team makes the crazy upset victory over 30K, it would probably be Diamond Hands.
Ooh, all right. Well, we look forward to all the matches we'll be having here on HeroesCCL, and we look forward to, well, the grand finals coming up a little bit later this weekend. Don't go anywhere. You're moments away from Heroes Season 4 CCL action.